Hi guys, Simon here. I've done a quick, brief introduction to the channel and what I'm hoping the channel to be about, what I'm hoping to get out of the channel. So I thought on top of a channel introduction, I'd give a brief introduction to me. My name is Simon Kempthorne. I am nearly 46 years old. I'm married. I have two young daughters, 8 and 3 years old, and I love guitars. I've always loved guitar-based music. Um, I've always just loved music, but particularly guitar-based music. So when I was very young, one of the first pieces of technology I was given, probably about 4 years old, was a little cassette recorder and access to my parents' music collection. So my parents were in their teens and early 20s, in the swinging 60s. So a lot of the music I was brought up on is from that era. The Beatles, the Stones, Fleetwood Mac, Cliff Richard and the Shadows, Buddy Holly. You get the idea, all that sort of thing. I mean, my dad is a huge Hank Marvin and Shadows fan. There was always some piece of Shadows music played on the record player at home. We always had Sounds of the 60s on Radio 2 on a Saturday morning. Some of my fondest memories are travelling down for our yearly family holiday on the Isle of Wight, and before I could have my choice of music on the radio, we always had to listen to Sounds of the 60s. My mum, although not as heavily into music as my dad, probably actually inspired my musical tastes a little bit more than what my dad did, because she was a huge Dire Straits fan, massive Dire Straits fan, and I've always loved Dire Straits. And Mark Knopfler, he's just an absolute genius. So I've probably got 4 or 5 big influences, and reasons why I wanted to play guitar. I would say Mark Knopfler is definitely up there at the very top of the tree. Just watching him play and listening to him play, he's got his own unique style. If you hear him playing, it can only be him playing. I don't think there's anybody else that sounds like him. And probably one of my earliest musical memories would have been Live Aid. So I believe it was June or July 1985, I think. It was a very hot summer's day. My parents weren't in the habit of plonking me in front of the telly. We were always out as a family, countryside walks, days out, or I'd be out on the estate on my BMX, or just out and about. But that day, they must have realised the significance and the importance of Live Aid and what a big event it was. And I was plonked in front of the telly from the moment it started, and I was allowed to stay up quite late in the evening to watch a lot of it. I don't remember a lot of it from back in the day. Obviously, I've watched it numerous times since, and with the advances in technology, we're able to pull up stuff like that on YouTube and select what we want to watch when we want to watch it. But I do vividly remember when Dire Straits came out on stage, and I just remember being absolutely awestruck, if that's a word, awestruck. I just remember being absolutely blown away. They played Sultans of Swing, followed by Money for Nothing, um, and it's stuck with me for the rest of my life. It was just an absolutely, for a 6-year-old kid who was already heavily into music, it was an absolutely mind-blowing performance. Um, Growing up a bit older, I was into Bon Jovi. I was into a real wide variety. Obviously, I grew up through the Stock Aitken and Waterman era, so we were blessed with lots of good slash cheesy pop music. But the 80s was a great decade for music. All the different genres of music that were coming together. Again, advances in technology meant we had a lot more electronic based music. Then going into the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, the first band that I was really into was Guns N' Roses. Again, I still listen to a lot of Guns N' Roses today. Great band. Axl Rose, great vocalist. Slash, he is again up there with Mark Knopfler as another one of my big inspirations. And I found through my teenage years that my love for music grew and grew. My music collection grew and grew. I'd moved on from cassettes and vinyls to CDs. I still have all my CDs. I think up in the loft there's probably well over 1,000 CD albums and singles that I will never ever get rid of. Um, and then 1994 came around and Oasis hit the scene, and I loved them from the minute I got a bootleg copy of Definitely Maybe before it was released. I'm not quite sure how my friend got hold of it. He didn't ask questions, didn't really care where it came from, but I listened to that tape over and over and over again, and I just loved Oasis. Um, Everything they did, every single that came out, I was on it straight away. I went with a good friend in on the 5th of November 1995. We travelled down to London. We were 16 years old. I don't think I'd let my kids do it nowadays, but we travelled down to London and watched them perform at Earl's Court. It was the What's the Story tour. They played 2 nights at Earl's Court, and at that time they were the biggest indoor gigs that any band had played in the UK. I think I'll have to check my list, but I think at the moment I'm up to 150 plus bands that I've been to see play live. Quite a few of them I've seen more than once, Oasis being one of those bands. I have to say that gig now still is probably the best gig I've ever been to. That for me, that was peak Oasis. Liam's voice was at its best. They just released What's the Story, which was the biggest selling band, biggest selling album of the 1990s. So there's not a lot more to be said about that. And for me, Noel Gallagher is a genius, and he's number 3 on the list of inspirational guitarists. He's a bit of an idol for me. I love his guitar playing. I love his songwriting ability. I actually am a big Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds fan. It'll be interesting to see what happens to that band now Oasis have reformed, whether Oasis will continue as Oasis or whether it's just this one-off tour and they'll go back to doing what they're doing. I get the impression that Noel's quite happy doing his own thing. He's allowed to do what he wants to do as an artist. But yeah, so wife and I are lucky, very lucky. We managed to get tickets to go. We're going to see Oasis in July, 19th of July at Heaton Park in Manchester. So as you can imagine, I'm just a little bit excited about that. Yeah, I'm a big Britpop fan through the 90s. I did listen to a lot of trance through the 90s, did a lot of clubbing. It was just that was just what the scene was at the time. And then sort of turn of the century, early 2000s, got into bands like Coldplay, The Killers, The Kooks. I do like a bit of Ed Sheeran as well. I have to say probably my interest in newer music stops at around 2010. Some people would say I'm not a proper music lover because I don't keep my finger on the pulse of modern releases, but that's just me. I'm into anything from the early 60s through to the mid to late 2000s, and then really, aside from bands who are still going, the Rolling Stones, Coldplay, Noel Gallagher, apart from people like that, I don't really have an interest in newer music. So yeah, that's just it's just a little bit about me. If you've managed to get to the end of this video, thank you very much. Give us a thumbs up, like and subscribe, and I will follow these videos up. I'm gonna have a look at my my guitars and my equipment, just to go through with what I currently have, and just to let you know, basically, a young family, 2 young kids. I am working on a budget. If I had the money, I would fill the house with guitars and amps, but unfortunately, disposable income isn't huge at the moment. But I am incredibly pleased and proud of the kit that I have got. So the next 2 or 3 videos, I will just have a brief rundown on the kit that I've got, and then I'll start posting some songs. We'll start having a look at and learning some songs together. So yeah, if you made it to the end of this waffly video, thank you very much. If you want to carry on supporting me and supporting the channel, click a like on the video, click a subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.